On the 18th of February 2004, a little girl called Anastasia was born in the industrial city of Novokuznetsk, Russia, and was later placed in an orphanage. After 2 years of being there, she was eventually adopted. Geraldine and Patrick Kriégel completed the paperwork, and Anna was officially their daughter, and she would move thousands of miles away to live with them in the Republic of Ireland. She was the first child for the couple. Geraldine worked as a senior manager in the legal department of the CIE, the State Public Transport Company. Patrick taught French at the Dublin Institute of Technology and would later retire. Even though Geraldine and her French-born husband had no cultural links to Russia, they were determined that Anna would not lose touch with her Russian roots. They learned about Russian culture and kept her birth name. Every year she would celebrate 2 special days, her birthday on the 18th of February and her adoption day on the 10th of August. Anna was spirited and feisty, and one could always tell when she was around. She was incredibly athletic and loved swimming and dancing. She would spend loads of time in front of the mirror, practicing her dancing and having fun, as well as singing. Anna was described as very sensitive and innocent, and during her early years, while she was happy, she did have several health problems. She was left almost deaf in her right ear after a tumour was removed, in an operation lasting almost 6 hours. She would also have problems with her sight. As she entered her teens, she suffered from a painful condition, sometimes seen in adolescence, that occurs when the bones grow faster than the muscles. Emotional problems began to appear as primary school started to come to an end. On one occasion, her parents were alerted that Anna had told a teacher that she was feeling suicidal. Anna's resource teacher told Geraldine and Patrick that she was terrified for her to make the move and go to secondary school, because she was so innocent. She feared other students would take advantage of this. Her mother and father met early with the senior staff of the secondary school to highlight their concerns about Anna being a potential target for bullies. Much of the bullying was about her height. By the time she was 13, she was already 5'8" and looked older than she actually was. The bullies also mocked her for being adopted, telling her she didn't have real parents. Geraldine and Patrick took screenshots of some of the messages and showed them to the school, but even after she started there, the situation didn't improve. That October, Anna came home hysterical and incredibly shaken. She had been walking back after supervising a disco for young children when 4 boys approached her. One continuously asked her for sex before he touched her. They filed a complaint with the Garda Síochána, the Irish police, and the boy was cautioned for his actions. After painting a black eye on herself, she was suspended from school. Geraldine believed that her painting the black eye was an expression of her internal pain and turmoil. There were also fights at the school, one of which resulted in a suspension. All she wanted were friends her own age that she could be with, but she had few. As Anna's inner pain continued to mount, she began to set up fake social media accounts to send bullying messages to herself. Following this, Geraldine demanded that Anna gave her access to all of her apps so that she could check them. On Sunday the 13th of May 2018, with exams the following week, Geraldine and Anna had plans to sit down and study, but as there was a family gathering in a few hours, they decided to relax instead. They decided to watch films and eat popcorn. As the party was due to start soon, Geraldine ordered a pizza, and Anna walked into Leixlip to go to the Chinese takeaway instead. During that evening, Anna and her cousin went to her bedroom to make a YouTube video. Anna loved YouTube, and it was her favourite of the social media apps. Her videos were about clothes, makeup and dancing, and she had accumulated around 100 subscribers. While most of the comments were positive, some of them were threatening and abusive. One told her to go die, and another said they would have her executed. As the party wound down at around 10:30 p.m, Anna headed to bed. May 14th, 2018. Geraldine was usually the first one up in the morning. Anna reminded her that she would be leaving school at 2:30 to attend her weekly counselling session with Kildare Youth Services and would need a note to get out of school. After writing the note and giving her a kiss goodbye, Geraldine left to catch the train to go to her meeting in Dublin. The plan had been for Anna to eat lunch at school before walking to her counselling appointment, but she decided to head home to eat before going to her session. After finishing her counselling, she came home and headed to her room. At 4:02 p.m, Anna rang her mother, but as she was in a meeting she couldn't answer, and sent a text replying to say that she would call her shortly. Geraldine and Anna regularly called and texted each other throughout the day, and always made time to talk to each other. Her father Patrick was in the garden relaxing when he heard the doorbell at 4:55 p.m. Opening the door, it was a boy that Anna vaguely knew. As this boy is a child, he will be referred to throughout the rest of this episode as Boy B. When Patrick told her he was at the door for her, she was confused. While she knew who he was, they weren't friends. Despite this, she went down to speak to him. Patrick saw the pair standing in the hallway whispering, thinking it wasn't unusual, and he would later remark, "I think a lot of teens do it." She ran back to her bedroom to fetch her hoodie that her mother had bought for her. The hoodie was a distinctive black and white one. Patrick reminded her about her exams and told her she needed to study. Anna said she wouldn't be long, gave him a big smile and left. Patrick had forgot to ask her where she was going, and after opening the door he saw the pair walking towards St. Catherine's Park. They didn't appear to be talking, and Boy B, who was carrying a small backpack, was walking ahead of her. At 5:10, Geraldine was back on the train and heading home and was free to call Anna back. Anna didn't answer, and her mom didn't leave a message because she would soon be at home and able to see Anna. When she got home, Patrick was in the garden and told her that Anna had gone out with Boy B, who had called for her. Geraldine was immediately worried as, in her words, "Nobody calls for Anna." Shortly after 5:30 p.m, Geraldine texted her daughter a 2-word message, "Home, now. Answer me now or I'm calling the police." Geraldine decided to walk to the park to see if she could see her, but her search turned up nothing. After dinner, she headed back out in the car and drove around. Anna loved going on long walks while she listened to music, but she still couldn't be found. Once she returned home, she and Patrick headed onto Facebook to try and find Boy B. They did vaguely know him, but not at all well. They didn't know who his parents were or whereabouts he lived. Geraldine rang around but could find nothing. Anna had now been gone hours. Patrick and Geraldine visited a friend of theirs, John Cribbin, who was a retired detective, who could advise them on what to do. He told them to go straight to the Garda. The parents went to Leixlip Garda station, where Geraldine explained that it was highly unusual for Anna to not get in touch with me, but for the Garda, there was no reason to be immediately concerned. The first job of the investigators was to find out who Boy B was. They found his address on their computer system and headed over to his house. Garda Conor Muldoon asked the boy about the day's events. He said that he had called for Anna and the pair had walked over to the park, but he had left her there at 5:40 p.m. The following day, the search for Anna continued. Her parents, joined by family and friends, combed the local area on foot, speaking to anybody they could think of who may have known where their daughter was or where she could have gone. A family liaison officer had been appointed to support Anna's devastated family and help them through the investigation. Anna's parents gave them photos of her, including her wearing the black and white hoodie. On the 15th of May in the late afternoon, a press release was issued requesting the help of the public. Gardaí are seeking the public's help in tracing 14-year-old Anastasia Kriégel, who was last seen at her home in Leixlip, County Kildare, at 5 p.m. on Monday the 14th of May 2018. Anastasia is described as 5'8", black shoulder-length hair, sallow skin and slim build. Sergeant John Dunn had the task of going back to Boy B's house to ask him more questions. This time the boy explained that he had called for Anna on behalf of another boy, his friend, who will be referred to throughout the rest of this episode as Boy A. Anna had a crush on Boy A, but he wasn't interested in her. He said they had walked to the park where he had left her with Boy A before returning home to do his homework. Sergeant Dunn decided to take him back to the park. He showed the officers where they had entered the park and where he had left. The Garda marked all of these locations using the GPS on his radio before he took the boy home. As Dunn was walking back, he was stopped by a man and his son. The man had heard about Anna going missing and suggested the Garda check the back of the local sewage treatment plant, as teenagers tended to hang around there. Later that day he realised this was the father of Boy A, and the boy with him was Boy A. The statements of the boys were incredibly important to investigators. Officers had no reason to believe that Anna had been hurt, and as the boys were the last ones to see her, any information they could give them was vital. On Tuesday afternoon, both boys were brought back to the park. They led the way, with Dunn, Sergeant Hussey, and Boy A's father following behind. As they walked, Dunn noticed Boy B was leading them on a different route from the one he had shown them earlier. The boys came to a stop on the path near the BMX track. Dunn and Hussey both saw them exchange what they would later describe as a glance or look. The decision was made that formal statements needed to be taken so they could clarify their exact movements. Boy A and Boy B were taken to Lucan Station with their parents. Boy B was sticking to his story. He said that the first indication he had that anything had been wrong was when the Gardaí had been at his front door the day before. "I have no clue what happened to her," he said. The statement Boy A gave was detailed. He explained that Boy B was one of his best friends. Boy B had called by his house after school as Boy A was doing his chores. They arranged to meet in the park later, and when Boy B arrived, Anna was with him. Boy A said he knew her from school, but not that well. He said, "At one stage Anna said to me, 'I have something to ask you. I was wondering if you wanted to go out with me.' I was surprised, it came out of nowhere. I kind of knew she liked me, because she kind of asked me out before." He explained that he wanted to tell her gently that he wasn't interested in going out with her. I said, "I'm sorry, but I'm not interested." She didn't answer. She said nothing. She walked off. She looked annoyed and sad at the same time. By this point, Boy A said that his friend Boy B had left. Boy A had notable injuries and was walking with a limp. When he was asked about this, he claimed that he had walked on alone before being attacked by two males, who grabbed him and pulled him to the ground before kicking him. He said that the attack ended when he got to his feet and kicked one of them in the head, causing both of them to run away from him. Investigators were rather unsure about this story. Whilst he did have injuries that were consistent with some kind of assault, with his arm and leg being injured and his face being cut, his account seems strange, especially with his assertions that he had kicked a grown man in the head and caused both of them to flee. Despite their concerns, Gardaí were assigned to investigate his claim of being attacked. Boy A was taken to the Garda headquarters in Phoenix Park, Dublin, where a photo fit of the man he claimed had brutally attacked him was put together based on his descriptions. When the witnesses who were there in the park that day were spoken to, not one of them had seen anybody in or around the area that matched the photo fit. Nobody on the CCTV footage bore any resemblance to them either. As the following day rolled around, Wednesday the 16th of May, the search continued to gain momentum. There were now serious concerns that Anna had come to significant harm, or even been killed. Assigned to the lead investigation was Inspector Mark O'Neill of the Lucan Garda station. All members who were coming on duty in stations in both Kildare and North Dublin were briefed about the ongoing investigation. The decision was made to bring in a specialist search teams including a sub-aqua unit, who conducted searches of the River Liffey and other bodies of water. The Garda Crime and Security Branch were tasked with analysing mobile phone data to try and trace Anna's movements, and the Civil Defence provided 60 people to help in the investigation. Thursday, 17th of May, 2018. A derelict 19th century farmhouse called Glenwood House is located on the townland of Coldblow, west of Lucan. Built in around 1800, it sits on just over 100 acres of farmland on the edge of St Catherine's Park. It was inhabited up until the 1990s before it was left abandoned. By the summer of 2018, the house was effectively in ruin. It was a popular spot with teenagers who wanted to smoke and drink, and parts of the house had been gutted by a fire and the roof had collapsed in several places. That morning, Sergeant Declan Birchall and his specially trained 4-person team were deployed to search the areas that included Glenwood House and a portion of St Catherine's Park. After searching hedgerows and ditches and using maps and the methodical grid system, they made it to Glenwood House. Inside the house was dark. The windows were boarded up and little bits of light peeked through a hole in the planks of wood that had been put over the glass. White said he smelled dried blood, and through the darkness, he could see what appeared to be a mannequin of some sort. He called out into the darkness, but was met with silence. As he had been trained, he stepped into the room, confirmed what he'd seen, before leaving to call for the assistance of his colleagues. Upon hearing White shout, "Find," indicating he had found something of significance, Birchall ran into the house. As the search team later headed into room 1 to confirm what White thought he had seen, a horrifying discovery was made. A naked body wearing only black socks was discovered. They had found the body of Anna Kriégel. Her face was covered by her hair as if she had been thrashing it around. Scattered about the room of the abandoned building were pieces of her iPhone and items of her clothing. Near the body was a large stick and also a cement block that had bloodstains on them. The cement block also had knotted hair on it. Blood was on the walls and the carpet. After sealing off the crime scene, the search team awaited the arrival of Inspector John Gordon from the Lucan Garda station. A local doctor was called to formally pronounce the death. Within an hour, Anna's family were told that her body had been found, and that they would have to go to the morgue to formally identify her. The missing persons case was now a major murder inquiry. It was the job of the state pathologist, Professor Marie Cassidy, to oversee the transport of Anna's body via a hearse to the state laboratory in Whitehall in North Dublin, in order for a full autopsy to be carried out that evening. The number of injuries that Anna had sustained was horrifying. There were 50 different injury sites, and listing where they all were took Professor Cassidy 40 minutes. The most serious injuries were to her neck, face and head, and lacerations and bruises covered her entire body. She had died as a result of blunt force trauma. Following the pathology and forensic evidence, the Garda suspected that the stick had been used to beat her to the ground shortly after she had entered the room. They then suspected that she had been hit 4 times with a heavy object, such as the cement block that had been found. Blue building tape was found around her neck, which she had 3 fingers inside of, appearing as if she had been trying to get it off. Although Professor Cassidy said there was evidence of compression to her neck, it didn't appear that this had been caused by the tape. There was also evidence that there had been penetration or attempted penetration, but Professor Cassidy could not determine what had been used to do this. She was also unable to determine whether or not Anna had been conscious at the time. After being beaten, it's believed that she was dragged over towards the window where the small amount of light was able to get through. It was likely here that the sexual assault was carried out. As her false nails were scattered around the room, this indicated that she had fought her attacker with absolutely everything she had. They also believed that it was likely that she knew her killer. Inspector John Gordon gave a statement.
We are appealing to anybody who was here in St Catherine's Park from 5 p.m. onwards or thereabouts, or on the Clonee Road, on Monday the 14th of May, to contact the Garda Incident Room at Lucan Garda Station at 01 666 7300, the Garda Confidential telephone line at 1-800 666 or indeed if they contact any Garda station to pass on any information that they may have. We are in particular interested in people who may have been on the Clonee Road or here, who may have had dashcam footage, or who may have just witnessed Anna in the park, or any information that they have in relation to this. Thank you.
Do you have any idea how Anna got from this point to the disused farmhouse, which is at least a kilometre away?
At this time, we're following a number of lines of inquiry. We have not established any actual fact in that. There are a number of routes from here to the house, which is why we're extending out onto the Clonee Road as well.
How are her family?
As you can imagine, at this time they are receiving a lot of support from the Garda Síochána. They are extremely distressed.
This news left the community shattered. People began leaving flowers in tribute to Anna, shocked that a crime this brutal could happen. In spite of the huge amount of forensic evidence that had been found at the scene, none of it pointed immediately towards a suspect, as all the fingerprints and blood belonged to Anna. But this wouldn't last long. At the Forensic Science Ireland lab, scientists had a breakthrough. Analysis of her top showed semen stains. A few days later, scientists reported that Anna's blood had been found on a pair of boots that had belonged to boy A. His shoes had been taken away as part of the investigation into the alleged attack committed by 2 men. The blood pattern on the boots led the expert examining them to believe that Boy A had either been in close proximity when Anna was attacked, or he had attacked her himself. Those investigating already had reason to suspect Boy A and Boy B. Their discrepancies and inconsistencies in the stories they had told set off alarm bells with investigators. Now they had the forensic evidence that linked at least one of them to the scene of the crime. Both boys were from respectable backgrounds, and there was no history of disturbing behaviour or difficulty in school, as one may expect to find in young offenders, especially ones who commit serious offences. Boy A's phone had also been taken away for analysis as part of the alleged assault investigation. What was found on it only pointed the finger further in his direction. A screenshot of a list of YouTube videos was found that included the 15 most gruesome torture methods in history, horror films that will blow everything away, and Until Dawn, Get Jessica's Clothes Off. Until Dawn appeared to be a reference to a popular horror video game. Also found was a widely shared short story focused around a teenage boy who murders his family called Jeff the Killer. Whilst this could have been explained away as simply a fascination with the dark and macabre, another find on the phone did little to dampen their suspicions. A search had been made for abandoned places in Lucan. On the evening of the 23rd of May, the parents of Boy A and the parents of Boy B were told that a warrant had been issued for their arrests, and they would be required to bring them into the station the following morning. Officers did not tell them that immediately after their arrests, thorough searches of both homes would be conducted, and what officers would find in these searches would be utterly horrifying.